G'day everyone, what is going on? It is your favorite producer from Down Under, Jhin, back with another video. And in this one, I'm going to be deconstructing a song of mine called Peaceful Slumber, which is available on my most recent EP, The Story So Far. If you want a Spotify link to that one, link to it in the description. If you are new here, would greatly appreciate it if you do punch that subscribe button as well. And while you're at it, you may as well flick that little bell so you get notified every single time that I upload a video. Friendly reminder that I do stream live over on Kick as well, so if you do want to watch the shenanigans live, I would greatly appreciate it if you follow me over there too. But with that one being said, let's get into FL Studio and let's deconstruct this track. Okay, so here we are inside of FL Studio, and as you can see, like majority of my tracks, barely anything is happening with this one. We have 3 melodic and 1 bass. Now, I was heavily inspired by the underwater level of Super Mario 64, and what I thought would be perfect, a good foundation of this track, is some nice, lush, ambient chords. So I ended up going to Arcade, and I found this bank called Magic Sweater from the Downtime expansion. Now, we are working in the key of G major at a BPM of 83, but some of the chords do get a little bit spicy and a little bit funky. You'll see what I mean a little bit later on. So the first chord that we do use is obviously going to be a G major, where we have this G, this B, this D, and this F sharp. The next chord that we use, it does get a little bit funky because we have this G and this A sharp. A sharp is not in the scale of G major whatsoever, but it just sounded nice. It gave it that, sort of jazz sort of influence to it, so I decided to keep it because it also sounds nice to the ear as well. We have D and E finishing off this G minor. The next chord is where it gets really spicy because we have an F major, but F is not in the scale of G at all. But yet again, to the ear, especially with this sound and the effects that we put on, it actually sounded really nice. So we have this F, this A, this C, and this E, or as I like to personally call, the face chord. Ending it off, we have this E minor chord where we have this E, this G, but instead of having this C be down at a B, we've actually bumped it up to the C, and we ended with the E yet again. The bass notes with this one, it's just following the root notes, where we have G, G, F, E, and then to end it off, we end on the F yet again. In context, this is what the chords sound like. Going on to the effects with these chords, we keep it really simple because we have a Valhalla vintage verb come in where the mix is on 38%, pre-delay 9.3, decay 2.5, and a low cut of 120. We have a murder melodies come in where we're using the underwater preset, but as you can see over here, the master wet dry is set to 40%. Last but not least, we have an EQ come in where we're getting rid of some of the high end and a lot of the low end, giving it its own frequency range to be able to sit in. The next element of this track comes in from Arcade yet again, and this one is a little dream preset from the Downtime expansion bank yet again, and this one is just playing a really, really simple top melody. As you can see, it just bounces off the chords really nicely, but in context, it sounds like so. Going on to the effects with this melody, we keep it really simple yet again, because we have a Valhalla vintage verb with the mix on 26%, pre-delay 0, decay 2.5, and a low cut of 120. We do not want to reverb the low end. A fruity delay comes in where we have the time set to 2, we have the cutoff around 1000 Hz, the wet dry is set to 26%, and we've set it to ping pong, just to give it a subtle delay. Last but not least, another EQ comes in where we're getting rid of a lot of the high end and a lot of the low, just giving it a specific frequency range for it to shine. Alright, so the next element comes in from Arcade, and the preset that we are using is called Repro Keys, and this one comes from the Downtime expansion bank. Now, if we go in, you can kind of see that we're doing something a little bit strange, because we are working in the key of G major, but as you can see here, the first root note is A sharp. That's because the final track has actually been pitched up to A sharp, but I didn't want to pitch up the bass because it warped it a little bit too weird and made it sound a little bit too funny. So what we're doing is we're just copying the bass notes. which is A sharp, G sharp, G, ending on the G sharp. But in context, it sounds like so. You know, we're just keeping it really simple. For something, you know, lo-fi inspired, you don't want a bass line that goes all over the place. You want something that, you know, people can just relax to. You know, if you have something that's really complicated going everywhere, you're not going to be able to relax to it. Going on to the effects with the bass, we keep it really simple. We have a sound shifter come in where we're pitching it down a full octave, because if we pitched it in the piano roll, it plays in a registry where it does not actually register. So we had to find a loophole, which in this case is the sound shifter. The next element is an R bass stereo. We've got the intensity set to -3. We're just kind of filling up the low end, giving it more of a bass feel instead of a piano. Last but not least, we have a fruity limiter, which we are using as a compression sidechain, which has been sidechained to the kick. The last element that comes in comes from Arcade yet again, and this one is called the Icy Keys from the Toys expansion bank. And all we are doing with this one is a really, really simple top line melody, and in context, it sounds like so. Keeping it just really simple, going on to the effects with the top line melody, what we have with it is a fruity parametric EQ, where we're getting rid of a lot of the high end and a lot of the low end, giving it its own frequency range to shine in, and then an RVox stereo just to kind of bring up the volume a little bit because it was really quiet. We have the compression set to -5. Now, every single last melodic element gets routed to insert 4, which is this melody bus, where we have a sound shifter where we're pitching it up 3, putting it onto the key of A sharp or B flat. We have an RC20 retro color come in where we're using the Vinyl 3 preset. We have a portal come in where we have the stutter effects, and as you can see, the dry wet is set to 20. Last but not least, we have an SSL compressor come in just to be used as a glue compressor to make it sound like it's all coming from the one environment. Now, everything including the bass gets routed over to insert 6, where we have an SSL compressor come in yet again, just gluing everything together, making it sound uniform. And then we have an L1 limiter come in just to control the peaks. Going on to the drums of this track, we keep it really, really simple. We have a kick. Nothing special with that one. We have a snare. Nothing special with that. We have a hi-hat. Nothing special with that one whatsoever. And then every now and then we have this perk come in, which practically transitions one part to another, which sounds like so. Now, all I did with that is I just laid down a really, really simple drum groove, and we ended up with something that sounds like so. It sounds good, don't get me wrong, but it still feels like there's stuff missing. So I decided to add in this streams and bird texture that comes from the Cymatics Life Bank, and that one just sounds like so. Really simple, but just adding a little bit of texture. The next thing that we add in is the El Dre Jingle Shaker, which sounds like so. Practically just being used just to give it a bit of rhythm. Last but not least, we have this El Dre Toy Perks loop that comes in that sounds like so. Having all of that together with the drums, we end up with something that sounds like so. See how it kind of sounds a bit more full and a bit more natural now? Just having the drums by itself, having the weird chops with it, there was some blank spaces, but being able to fill that one up with texture and loops, it just kind of made it feel a bit more full and just made it sound a bit more natural. The only effects that we have come in for this whole track is this reverse bell that sounds like so. Besides that, we rely on external effects to make it sound like the whole track is transitioning and actually evolving over time. As you can see with this portal, which comes in from the melody bus, we have that one being automated throughout the track, on, off, on, off. But, you know, we just keep the whole track really simple because, yet again, when it comes to lo-fi, it's all about just making a track sound as nice and smooth as possible, something you can have playing in the background that doesn't draw your attention away from what you're actually doing. It's just there as white noise, as background noise, just to fill up, you know, the empty void that is there. But yeah, that is how I made my track Peaceful Slumber, which is available on all music streaming services. If you do want to listen to it on Spotify, I'll be leaving a link to it in the description. If you are new here, would greatly appreciate it if you do punch that subscribe button. And while you're at it, you may as well flick that little bell. It's completely free and you do get notified every single time that I upload a video. If you do want to watch the shenanigans live, would greatly appreciate it if you chuck me a follow over on Kick as well. I go live every single day and night from 10 PM AEST. But with that one being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next week for another deconstruction.